Hey everyone, me Kevin here. Is Twitter actually going to go bankrupt? Well, I've done some numbers, I've looked at the debt, I've looked at the incomes, and I want to give you some of my thoughts on whether or not it would actually make sense to file for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So, first of all, I want you to think about the money Elon just saved by firing 3,750 people. Well, it's not the best thing to do politically, and it definitely has led to some canceled advertising contracts. Consider this. If the average employee at Twitter makes about $100,000, you want to add 30% of that for workers' comp, insurances, liability, training, paid days off, paid vacations, sick time, doctors' insurances, stock comp, whatever, all of that. Easy 30% add, right? So you add 30%, multiply that by 3,750. Just by cutting those jobs, Twitter's probably saved $500 million. Which that sounds like a lot because Twitter was basically break-even, nearly break-even, tiny little loss in Q2. And that's the last financial report we have. But what's interesting is Twitter's debt has skyrocketed. And I think that's what's motivating Elon Musk going, well, dang it, we were bankrupt back when our interest expenses were about $100 million a year. Now, because I borrowed $13 billion to buy this company, and we're losing potentially $4 million per day, which is somewhere around $120 million per month, which is potentially a loss of somewhere around $1.4 billion per year. When you add those things together, all of a sudden Twitter doesn't look that profitable, right? These losses, which probably encompass the debt, Twitter's probably somewhere losing around $1.5 billion a year now. Obviously, the employee layoff aspect helps, but that probably... Elon's suggesting $4,000 in losses per day, either before or after the employee layoffs, would make a difference of about $500 million, right? $500 million is a lot, but it means they're either burning $1.5 or $2 billion. I'm going to guess Elon was talking about this $4,000 per day loss before the layoffs. Let's assume that. So that puts us at about $1.5 billion of annual losses over at Twitter. And again, they're spending a ton of money on debt, and the higher interest rates go, the more they have to pay because a lot of these are variable debts. Twitter, in their last report in June, had $2.68 billion in cash. They had $3.4 billion in short-term investments. Those treasuries could have gone up in value if those are treasuries. So that puts them at about $6 billion, which is really convenient math because that gives them about a 4-year runway rate as long as they have relatively stable income. Now, if their income falls 25% because 1 in 4 advertisers are like, bye, or it's a recession and their income falls, they'd have a 3-year run rate at the current burn level, which is kind of interesting. So I think this idea that, the bankruptcy, a Chapter 11 reorganization bankruptcy for Twitter is imminent, I don't think is actually very likely. I think it's, like I mentioned in my last video, I think it's a tool. I think politically, it helps Elon Musk be able to justify all of the 3,750 people he just laid off. Look, Disney's laying off people. I don't have to go through the list. Almost every company is either freezing hiring or laying off people. We're seeing the same thing happen in logistics now as well, which suggests a big drop in consumer discretionary demand. Trucking, freight demand is dropping off a cliff. It's insane. Some people in the industry are like, this is the worst I've ever seen it. So it's scary, and it's actually all designed by the Federal Reserve. They're trying to purposely slow everything down. But mentioning bankruptcy as a possibility is definitely politically motivated, I think, for Elon Musk. Suggesting bankruptcy tells advertisers, all right, well, look, they were going to go bankrupt if they didn't lay people off, right? It gives people an excuse to still be associated with Twitter. Obviously, there's been a lot of other drama going on with the check mark and the official and the impersonation stuff. Look, there are going to be mistakes, as Elon Musk has put it. There will be mistakes. But again, they could survive for 3 years, roughly, based on my estimates, with the money and debts that they have. The issue really becomes leaning out and now making a more profitable product. And so I think Elon, a second reason for suggesting bankruptcy is trying to motivate existing workers, motivate people to work hard. One of the issues they're facing now is the FTC is investigating them, and they've got a lot of employees who are fearful that they're going to go to jail. And their corporate counsel has come out via internal memos and suggested to the internal workforce, look, when you're working for a corporation, it's the corporation that's legally liable for actions. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily always true, because if you're a fraud and you're doing things intentionally wrong, I would suggest the corporate veil will only protect you so far. But generally, if you are an employee, this is true. Anything employees do is the responsibility of the corporation. An employee messes up, it's the responsibility of the corporation. So it's true, but it shows you some of that internal strife that you're seeing. I mean, you just saw the chief of their compliance department dip out, Yal Roth, which was it really came as a shocker, because he's been on the spaces with Elon Musk. He's almost sounded like Elon's right-hand man over at Twitter. So it's a little bit shocking. A lot of drama going on about bankruptcy. But another thing to remember about a Chapter 11 is that Chapter 11, first of all, is not Chapter 7 liquidation. Chapter 7 liquidation is like Toys R Us, like you're closing your doors, you're gone. Chapter 11 is what you do when you want to reduce your debts. But the problem with that is judges usually take equity as well. And it's possible that even though Elon Musk has control of Twitter now, if he actually went through a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, reorganization, he would probably lose control of Twitter. And I don't expect that's his goal. I think his goal is to make sure he maintains control of Twitter between a now and some future point of profitability. You know, he's been memeing. He says he used to be made fun of for, because he started at PayPal, right? He used to be made fun of as the internet man who wants to get into rockets and cars. Now he's being made fun of the rocket and car man who wants to get into the internet. And so, I have a lot of faith in Elon, obviously. I think most people know that I'm a fan. I think there are definitely a lot of mistakes being made. Some of them really, really avoidable. I don't think he should be moderating politics himself as chief twit. But the odds of bankruptcy, I think, are relatively low, at least for the next 3 years. And quite frankly, in even a year and a half time from now, I expect interest rates to be lower. Their interest expense could be lower. They could actually take whatever revenue they have and potentially use that to pay down debt, much like the oil companies are doing right now. I mean, yesterday in the course member live stream, it was the day before yesterday, we were doing an analysis on the balance sheet of some of the oil companies, which do keep in mind that you could take advantage of that 60% off coupon code. It's a Black Friday coupon, best pricing we've got, okay? If you've got questions, send us an email at kevin@kevin.com. Do know, though, that it's the weekend, so we're a little slower replying on the weekends. But anyway, or just buy the courses using the coupon code, because they're freaking awesome. But if you have questions about like a custom bundle or whatever, you could join over or send us an email. Anyway, so we were looking at the oil companies, and they're throwing almost all of their extra cash flow, their positive cash flow after positive net income, they're throwing almost all of it into stock buybacks and a loan pay down, and it's really smart. I mean, the cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, we looked at them, they're losing like $4 million a day just in interest. They need to pay down, but the problem is it's going to take them years to pay this stuff down. The oil companies, they could actually be at very low levels of debt. I wouldn't say they're going to pay off all their debt, because then you lose some of the leverage, and oil companies want, as do many companies, want to use some leverage, right? But the debt paydown rates are great right now, and they'll probably be super low debt by 2024 over this next year here, and oil prices will probably hold up. So really, really remarkable. Obviously, we've got a lot of enthusiasm for the macro cycle turning positive. That's going to be a big help for Elon, because we know he well overpaid. This is probably a $15 stock that he paid $54.20 for. So, even tripling on an IPO in 2 or 3 years is just going to put it back to where it was potentially. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'm optimistic. I'm not invested. I had one share of Twitter. I actually don't know what's happened to that, but probably got liquidated at $54.20. Anyway, my thoughts. Is he going bankrupt? No. Is it a good political tool? Yes. 3-year run rate, even that's with 25% advertisers cutting. Do know if we saw 75% of advertisers cutting, you could be down to a 1-year run rate, right? Because then you're going to blow through those marketable securities. And remember, those numbers are from June, so they could have already burned through some of that over the last 3 months while they were going through the process of acquisition. So we'll see. A lot of really loud people shouting over here, but hopefully you can hear the audio just fine. Thanks so much for watching. Check out the programs on Building Your Wealth, link down below, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.